Let me tell you something. Being poor is not just about money. It's about waking up every single day with a question in your heart, how am I going to make it through today? See, when a poor man wakes up in the morning, the first battle is food. Not what to eat, but if there's anything to eat. You and I can open the fridge, stare for 10 minutes, and still complain we got nothing. A poor man don't have that problem because the fridge is empty. The problem is not choosing what to eat. It's figuring out if he's going to eat it all. When you think about food, most of us picture choice. We walk into the kitchen, open the fridge, and stand there for a while deciding between eggs, bread, rice, or maybe something quick and easy. We scroll through delivery apps, complain about the menu, or even say there's nothing to eat while standing in front of a shelf stacked full of options. But for a poor man, food is not a matter of choice. It's a matter of survival. His day doesn't start with what should I eat today. It begins with will I eat at all? Hunger is one of the cruelest struggles a human being can endure. It's not loud, but it's relentless. It gnaws at your stomach, saps your energy, and weighs on your mind. A poor man doesn't have the luxury of ignoring hunger. It follows him from the moment he opens his eyes in the morning until the time he lays his head down at night. When the belly is empty, even the smallest task feels impossible. How can someone focus on dreams, on education, on progress when the body is weak and the mind is clouded by the constant thought of food? For many, food is a daily guarantee. For the poor, it's a daily question mark. Sometimes the only meal is bread dipped in water or a small portion stretched among many mouths. Sometimes the father will silently go hungry so his children can eat, and he'll mask the pain with a smile, pretending he's already full. That quiet sacrifice is one of the deepest signs of love, but it's also a heavy reminder of how unfair life can be. The poor man knows the embarrassment of standing in a store with only a few coins in his pocket, calculating what he can afford. He knows what it feels like to walk past food stalls, smelling the delicious aromas, but knowing those tastes are not for him. He knows the shame of hearing his children ask for something he cannot give. That moment when a child looks into your eyes with hunger is not just a struggle of the stomach, it is a wound in the soul. Yet, in all this hardship, the poor man develops a resilience that many can't imagine. Hunger teaches patience. It teaches him how to stretch a little into enough. It forces creativity, turning scraps into meals, making nothing look like something because dignity refuses to beg even when the stomach cries. Hunger humbles, but it also strengthens. The tragedy, though, is not just in the lack of food. It is in the way society overlooks this struggle. We see someone poor and assume laziness or bad choices, but we don't realize how much energy it takes simply to survive without proper nourishment. Hunger steals focus, steals health, steals years from life. And still, the poor man wakes up tomorrow carrying the same fight with the same courage. Food is not just fuel. It is comfort, security, and hope. For a poor man, a full plate is not only about satisfying hunger, it is about dignity. It is proof that his hard work, his sweat, his struggle can put something on the table. Every bite is a victory. Every meal is a blessing. And every day with food is a day of relief. This is why the struggle for food is not just about filling an empty stomach. It's about the constant test of faith, the silent battle with despair, and the incredible strength it takes to keep moving forward, even when life offers nothing but hunger. And that right there is the hidden story behind every poor man's fight for a simple meal. Shelter is one of those things most people hardly think about. You walk into your home, close the door behind you, and immediately feel safe. Walls protect you from the wind. A roof shields you from the rain, and warmth surrounds you when the cold sets in. But for a poor man, shelter is not a guarantee. It is not a place of rest or comfort. It is a daily question of where to stay, how to stay, and whether tonight will be dry, warm, or even safe. When life is built on survival, shelter becomes one of the greatest struggles. A poor man often lives in spaces most people would never step into, broken shacks with leaky roofs, thin walls that cannot block out the cold, or one small room shared by too many. Each night becomes a gamble with the elements. If it rains, water drips through the ceiling onto the bed, soaking blankets that are already too thin. If the wind blows, it rattles the walls and creeps in through cracks, chilling the body to the bone. In the heat, it suffocates. In the cold, it punishes. The very thing that should provide comfort often becomes another hardship. For families, shelter is supposed to mean stability. A home is where children should feel safe, where parents can rest after a long day, where dignity is protected. But for the poor, shelter is fragile. Landlords demand rent that barely earned wages cannot cover. Eviction is a constant fear, and moving from one temporary space to another becomes a cycle. Sometimes the home is no more than a tent, a makeshift structure built from scraps, or even a spot on the sidewalk. To live without secure shelter is to live without peace of mind. This struggle is not just physical, it is deeply emotional. Imagine lying awake at night, not because you're not tired, but because you're listening for danger. The fear of thieves, the sound of footsteps outside, or the possibility of being forced to leave at any moment strips away any sense of safety. A poor man often learns to live lightly, never fully unpacking his belongings, never fully trusting the walls around him, because tomorrow those walls might not be his anymore. For children, growing up without stable shelter leaves lasting marks. Homework is done under dim light, if light exists at all. Nights are restless. Mornings start with the weight of insecurity, and dreams shrink when a child sees their parents constantly worried about rent or repairs they cannot afford. The absence of safe shelter steals more than comfort. It steals opportunities, confidence, and sometimes hope. Yet in the middle of this struggle, there is resilience. A poor man learns to patch holes with anything he can find, to turn broken spaces into a home with whatever little he has. He learns to be grateful for even four walls, no matter how fragile, because it is better than the open sky. And still, he carries the dignity of calling it home, no matter how the world may judge it. What many fail to understand is that shelter is not about luxury. It's not about large houses, polished floors, or expensive furniture. It's about the human need to feel safe, to belong somewhere, to close your eyes at night without fear. For the poor man, shelter is not a foundation for dreams. It is the dream itself. It is the quiet hope that tomorrow his family will sleep dry, warm, and undisturbed. The struggle for shelter is one of the clearest reminders of how uneven life can be. While some complain about the color of their walls or the sides of their bedrooms, others pray for just one night without rain dripping through the roof. And yet, through every hardship, the poor man keeps fighting, because even when the house is small, broken, or temporary, the strength it takes to keep his family under a roof is nothing short of extraordinary. Work is supposed to be a way for a person to build a life, to provide for family, to grow, and to find dignity in earning. But for a poor man, work is not about choice or career. It is about survival. It is not about passion, fulfillment, or ambition. It is about putting food on the table today, paying the rent tomorrow, and hoping there is still enough left to keep the lights on. Work becomes a constant struggle, not because he doesn't want to work, but because the world rarely offers him the kind of work that brings stability or respect. When opportunities are scarce, a poor man cannot afford to wait for the right job. He takes what is available, no matter how exhausting, no matter how low the pay, no matter how unsafe. Whether it's long hours in the sun carrying bricks, sweeping streets before the city wakes, or standing behind machines that wear down the body, he keeps going because there is no other option. Each day is a fight against exhaustion, against low wages, and against the endless cycle of starting from zero again and again. The injustice of this struggle lies in the effort compared to the reward. The poor man often works harder than those with comfort, yet his reward is barely enough to cover the basics. His sweat builds homes he may never live in, grows food he may never eat, and fuels businesses whose owners may never know his name. The labor is invisible, but the pain is real. And even when the day's work ends, the worry doesn't. He carries home not just sore muscles, but the heavy thought of whether tomorrow will bring the same work, less work, or no work at all. There is also the humiliation that comes with this struggle. To walk into a place and ask for work, to hear no again and again, to feel the weight of being unwanted. This is a wound that cuts deeper than tired feet or calloused hands. Society often looks at the poor man and assumes laziness, when in truth, he has been chasing work from morning to night, willing to do anything, if only someone would give him the chance. For his family, work means more than income. It means pride. It means the ability to look his children in the eye and say, your father provided this meal. Your mother worked for these clothes. Even the smallest earning carries dignity because it represents effort. That is why a poor man will endure long hours, harsh conditions, and unfair treatment, not because he is weak, but because his family's survival depends on his sacrifice. And yet, despite all of this, there is a strength in the poor man's approach to work that cannot be measured. He does not quit. He does not allow shame to stop him. If one door closes, he knocks on another. If one job ends, he searches for the next. His determination is a quiet kind of heroism, the kind that doesn't make headlines but keeps the world moving. Without him, streets would not be clean, crops would not be harvested, and countless comforts enjoyed by others would not exist. Still, the truth remains, work for the poor man is rarely fair. The hours are long, the pay is low, and the respect is missing. But through it all, he holds on to dignity. He knows that no matter how small the job, there is honor and effort. He knows that his sweat is not wasted, even if the world refuses to value it. And most importantly, he knows that giving up is never an option, not when his family depends on him. The struggle of work for the poor man is not just about labor. It is about the courage to keep going when the world pays little and sees less. It is about finding dignity in sacrifice and meaning in perseverance. It is about never letting hardship take away the one thing he can control, his determination to fight another day. Dignity is something every human being deserves, yet it is often the first thing stripped away from a poor man. Poverty is not just about the lack of money or resources. It is about the way the world looks at you, the way society treats you, and the way you are forced to fight every day to hold on to your self-respect. A poor man does not wake up wanting pity. He does not want handouts that remind him of his struggles. What he truly seeks is dignity, the ability to stand tall, to work, to provide, and to be treated as a human being worthy of respect. One of the cruelest parts of poverty is how invisible it can make someone. A poor man can walk past you on the street and most people won't look twice. If they do look, it might be with judgment or sympathy that stings rather than heals. People whisper, they assume laziness, or they offer pity disguised as kindness. But pity cuts deep because it places the poor man beneath the giver, as if his worth is less. Dignity, on the other hand, lifts him up. It says, I see you. I respect you. You are not defined by your condition. The poor man works harder than most, yet he is often treated as if his effort is worthless. He builds roads that others drive on, cleans spaces that others use, and serves in roles that keep life moving for everyone else. And yet, instead of appreciation, he receives disregard. He is spoken to harshly, paid unfairly, and treated as if his labor has no value. In these moments, his greatest struggle is not hunger or fatigue. It is the fight to protect his sense of worth when the world constantly tells him he has none. But here lies the truth. Dignity is not tied to wealth. Dignity is tied to character. The poor man understands this better than most. He refuses to let poverty define who he is inside. He holds his head high even when his pockets are empty. He chooses honesty over stealing even when temptation is strong. He chooses to keep fighting rather than give up because he knows his struggle has meaning. These choices, small as they may seem, are victories of dignity over despair. There is also a powerful kind of pride in earning, no matter how little. To the poor man, a day's wage, though small, carries more weight than a gift given out of pity. That wage represents effort, sacrifice, and survival. When he sets food on the table for his family, it is not just a meal. It is proof that his labor, his sweat, and his perseverance made it possible. No charity in the world can replace the pride of saying, I worked for this. Society often fails to understand that the poor man's greatest hunger is not always for food. It is for respect, to be seen as capable, to be treated as equal, to be recognized as human. That is the deeper need. Handouts may ease today's hunger, but respect feeds the soul. Pity breaks the spirit, but dignity restores it. And even through the hardest times, the poor man clings to dignity. He will share what little he has with others, proving that generosity is not measured by wealth, but by heart. He will smile despite the pain, showing that hope is stronger than circumstance. He will rise each morning, step into the struggle, and refuse to surrender because dignity will not let him quit. In the end, the poor man's struggle is not only a fight against poverty, but a fight against the world's tendency to reduce him to his condition. His story reminds us that every person, regardless of wealth, deserves respect. And while money may measure possessions, dignity measures humanity. That is why the poor man seeks not pity, but the simple, priceless gift of being seen, valued, and respected as a human being. Strength is something people often measure in the wrong ways. They look at muscles, at success, at power, or at who holds the money. But the truest strength is not loud. It's not visible to everyone, and it doesn't always come with recognition. The poor man carries a strength that is rarely noticed because it hides behind his struggles. It doesn't show up in gyms or on stages. It shows up in his survival, in his endurance, and in his refusal to quit when life keeps trying to break him. This is the unseen strength of poverty, the strength that allows a man to keep fighting day after day, even when he has every reason to give up. Think about what it takes to wake up every morning knowing that the day ahead will not be easy. He doesn't wake up to comfort. He doesn't wake up to choices, and he doesn't wake up to security. He wakes up to uncertainty of food, of work, of shelter, of how his family will survive the next 24 hours. And still he rises. That in itself is strength. Many people collapse under small pressures, but the poor man has learned to stand up under a weight that never lifts. The unseen strength lies in his patience. Hunger hurts, cold bites, and exhaustion weighs heavy, but he pushes through anyway. He endures long hours of labor for little pay. He listens to insults without fighting back, and he swallows pride when asking for work because survival demands it. Each of these moments could break him, but instead they build a resilience that most people cannot imagine. His patience is not weakness. It is power, a power that allows him to continue moving forward even when every step feels impossible. There is also a deep emotional strength in protecting his loved ones from his own pain. A poor man may go hungry, but pretend he has already eaten so his children don't feel guilty. He may carry stress heavy on his shoulders, but still smile to keep his family hopeful. That quiet sacrifice, that ability to shield others from despair while he carries it alone, is one of the strongest acts of love. His strength is unseen because it hides in the moments where he chooses silence over complaint, giving over taking, hope over bitterness. What society often fails to recognize is that this unseen strength is what keeps communities alive. The labor of the poor man builds roads, grows food, cleans cities, and holds up the structures that others benefit from. Without his strength, many of the comforts others take for granted would not exist. Yet, the credit is rarely given. His strength remains invisible because people look at his poverty and miss the greatness inside it. Unseen strength also comes from hope. Hope is not easy when life is cruel, but the poor man still believes tomorrow might be better. That belief alone requires courage. It takes strength to dream when everything around you says not to. It takes strength to teach your children to aim higher, even when you yourself are struggling at the bottom. It takes strength to keep faith alive when reality tries to kill it. This kind of strength does not make headlines, but it is the most powerful kind of all. It is the strength that refuses to break. It is the strength that bends under hardship but never snaps. It is the strength that proves a man's value is not in what he owns, but in what he endures and how he continues to rise. The poor man may not be celebrated, but his unseen strength is a lesson for the world. It tells us that true power is not about wealth or fame. It is about resilience, sacrifice, patience, and hope. It is about standing tall even when life has pushed you to your knees 100 times. It is about refusing to let poverty steal your spirit. That is the kind of strength that cannot be bought, cannot be taught, and cannot be taken away. It is unseen, but it is unshakable. Humanity is often measured in ways that don't really matter. People think wealth makes them important, that status makes them respected, or that possessions make them valuable. But the true value of humanity is not found in the size of a man's bank account or the kind of car he drives. It is found in his heart, in the way he treats others, in his kindness, and in his ability to respect himself and those around him. The poor man's life, though full of struggle, reminds us of this truth. He may lack money, but he often holds more humanity than those with abundance. Money can buy food, but it cannot buy compassion. It can buy shelter, but it cannot buy the peace of knowing you stood tall in the face of hardship. It can buy comfort, but it cannot buy the strength that comes from refusing to quit. The poor man teaches us that humanity is not about what you have. It is about who you are when you have nothing. To live without resources and still keep dignity, to endure hunger and still share a piece of bread with another, to suffer in silence and still smile at the world. That is humanity at its purest. The world often gets blinded by wealth. We admire people with money, assuming their value is greater. But when everything is stripped away, when the titles, the riches, and the luxuries are gone, all that is left is character. And character is the real currency of humanity. The poor man who continues to work honestly despite unfair wages, who refuses to steal even when temptation is close, who keeps faith in a better tomorrow despite despair, that man is rich in humanity. True humanity is also found in respect. A poor man may not be able to buy gifts or luxuries, but he can give something far more meaningful, respect and kindness. He knows what it feels like to be overlooked, so he often sees others more clearly. He knows the sting of being judged, so he does not judge quickly. He knows the pain of not being heard, so he listens. In his struggle, he learns empathy, and empathy is one of the highest expressions of humanity. Another measure of humanity is the way we treat those who have less. It is easy to honor the powerful, easy to admire the wealthy, and easy to respect the successful. But the real test is how we treat those with nothing to offer us in return. Do we look down on the poor, or do we see their strength? Do we dismiss them, or do we recognize their worth? Our humanity is revealed in these choices. The poor man, though struggling, often passes this test better than those who judge him, because even with little, he knows how to give. Humanity is not about pity, it is about connection. The poor man does not want to be pitied, but he deserves to be respected. His struggles are real, but they do not erase his value. In fact, they highlight it. Because to survive what he survives, to endure what he endures, and to still remain standing is proof of a spirit that cannot be measured in money. At the end of life, no one will ask how many cars you drove, how big your house was, or how much money you saved. What will matter is how you lived, how you treated others, and whether you left the world a little better than you found it. The poor man's journey may be hard, but it carries lessons in humanity that wealth cannot teach. Patience, empathy, resilience, and above all, dignity. This is the true value of humanity. It is not in possessions, but in the heart. It is not in what you own, but in how you live. It is not in what you keep, but in what you give. The poor man may lack riches, but his life is rich with lessons that remind us of what truly matters. And if we are wise enough to see it, his struggle becomes not just his own story, but a mirror showing us the true measure of being human